This man saved helpless wolf cubs and their injured mother. What happened next will leave you speechless. One morning, Michael was returning to his cabin after several exhausting days of prospecting. Suddenly, he froze in place. A sharp, agonizing howl echoed through the air. He set his camping gear down and cautiously moved forward to look through the bushes. In the clearing, he saw a massive Alaskan timber wolf. Imagine encountering such a huge creature, easily weighing around 100 pounds. Its leg appeared to be trapped, and it was desperately trying to break free. But after a while it seemed to lose hope and collapsed back onto the ground. The wolf looked tired, as if it had lost all hope. Michael was shocked to discover the wolf. He wanted to help the animal, but when he got closer it got spooked and tried to pull on the chains, growling, and its hair stood up. But it seemed to be more out of fear than real anger. Michael backed off because he didn't want it to injure itself, but before he did, he saw something he didn't expect. It was clearly a female wolf, but that wasn't the surprising part. Its teats were full of milk. Somewhere, there were babies that needed to eat, if they were still alive. Nursing puppies can't survive without their mother for very long. If Michael wanted to reunite the puppies with their mother, he'd have to act fast. But there was no way Michael was going to risk being close enough to the wolf to free her, at least not without getting his arm chewed off in the process. The wolf seemed very weak, almost dying. In fact, it seemed she had lost a lot of blood from the injury on her leg. If she was left to suffer like this, she would surely die. But Michael wasn't about to let it come to that. After everything he had endured, he had become someone who never gave up. And he wasn't about to give up on this dying mother wolf either. He understood that every second he hesitated could mean the difference between life and death for her or her cubs. There was no time to waste. He had to act immediately. Undecided about how to get the wolf's leg out of the trap without getting injured himself, Michael realized the wolf just lay there without moving. She had fought so hard to get out of the trap, but now the pain and blood loss had caught up with her. Time had run out. He had to get her out of the trap now and tend to her injuries. Carefully, he touched her paw, but she didn't respond. She was completely out of it. It was now or never. Michael grabbed his sleeping bag, threw it over her head, and slowly pulled it over her entire body. Hopefully, it would at least keep her confined until he could get the trap off her leg and run for safety. He then pushed the button on the trap to release it, but it wouldn't budge. It was stuck. It looked like it had bent when the she-wolf had tried to escape. Michael needed to get her loose, or she would die. He picked up a rock and struck the trap's release button. He kept hitting it until the mechanism finally snapped open. Without hesitation, he wrapped the injured wolf completely in his sleeping bag. Then, carrying her in his arms, he sprinted toward his cabin as fast as he could. It wasn't easy, but Michael was a strong man. In just 50 minutes, he reached his cabin. Gently, he placed the wolf down near the fireplace. She was freezing. Luckily, the fire was already set up, and all he had to do was light it. Once the cabin warmed up, he could examine her injuries. He reached for his first aid kit, cleaned the wound, and stitched it up. Michael had some medical training and knew exactly what to do. Her leg was also broken, and he needed to straighten it by putting it in a splint to keep it still. If he had waited any longer, she would for sure have lost the leg. Now, he only hoped that he was in time to save her life, too. She slowly started to show signs of life, but then Michael gave her a sedative. The first time she growled at him again was the first time he knew that she was going to be okay. She needed him to help her, but she didn't want him to get too close. Knowing she would eventually wake up, Michael decided to move her out of the cabin and into a shed, where he kept her. She wouldn't be able to move quickly with the splint on her leg. After checking on the mama wolf, who was looking better, he set out to find the puppies. But where could Michael even start to find a den of wolf cubs? He grabbed a bag and a flashlight and went off to search. They couldn't be super far since a wolf won't wander too far from her babies. He was only visiting Alaska before he had to join the Second World War as a medic, but he had plenty of survival and tracking skills. He was going to need to use all the skills he could muster to save those babies. Without his help, those babies were as good as dead. He searched up and down the area, looking for prints, and finally got a break. The tracks led him in the direction she had come from. It was a place to start. He climbed up the mountain as fast as he could, but he had to stay alert for any signs of a den. Missing it could mean disaster for the helpless wolf cubs waiting to be rescued. He moved quickly, but something caught his eye, making him stop and turn back. It was well hidden, but there was a small opening in the ground. With hope in his heart, he thought, maybe this was the den he had been searching for. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. Now, the only problem was getting the wolf puppies to come out. They were trained to stay inside until they heard their mother, even if staying inside could mean their death. Michael was determined to give it his best shot. He tried his best wolf call. Nothing happened. He tried again, but still nothing. He was contemplating the dangers of trying to go into the den when suddenly a tiny wolf came out. It was crying from hunger. That was probably one of the main reasons it was willing to risk coming out without hearing its mother's voice. After the first baby came out, the others soon followed. They were small, but they were still little wolves. Knowing that he could never carry all four, he placed them all carefully in the bag and closed it up. They were safe inside, but he had to check if any other cubs remained in the den. It is never a good idea to stick your head into a wolf den with only a flashlight for protection. But thinking that he might have left one behind was unacceptable. He had to check. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as he lay flat on his stomach and crawled inside. Fortunately, the den wasn't as deep as he had feared, but the darkness was heavy, and the air was thick with the scent of fear. With his light, he scanned the space carefully. No other wolves remained. Now, he could leave with peace of mind, knowing that no helpless cubs had been left behind. He grabbed the bag of pups and went back to their mother. It felt surreal carrying a bag of wolf puppies. She must have heard their tiny whimpers as they were approaching because she started to howl. Carefully, he set the puppies down and let them into the shed one by one, hoping that his smell on the pups didn't cause the mother to reject them. If she didn't accept them, finding them was going to mean nothing. The puppies recognized their mother, and they all ran straight towards her. She sniffed them, and for a moment, Michael held his breath. Would she know them? The rugged outdoorsman got emotional when she started licking the pups. She laid down, and soon all the puppies were happily drinking. Her whole body seemed to relax, but her leg was still badly injured. Michael would have to figure out a way to get her out of the trap, or she might lose her leg, and a wild wolf without a leg was pretty much guaranteed to be a dead wolf. Along with her, her puppies wouldn't survive either. However, there were more urgent matters to handle. The wolf had been trapped for a long time. She had to be starving and dehydrated. Now that she was nursing her cubs, her need for water would be even greater. For the moment, Michael had to bring her the essentials himself. He knew of a place where hunters stored meat in the ice. They called it Nature's Cold Storage, and it was understood that anyone could take what they needed. Feeding a wolf might not have been their original intention, but this was an emergency. He sliced off a big chunk of meat and threw it, piece by piece, at the hungry timber wolf. She might not have trusted him, but she was happy to take the food that he was providing. She didn't have much choice. He also put water in a food bowl and pushed it closer with a stick. At least she wasn't growling with every move he made anymore, and Michael would take that as progress. But as soon as he tried to get closer to check out her leg, she would try to bite. Still, Michael and the wolf both had a really full day and needed rest. To get her to trust him, he put his sleeping bag as close to the wolf as he could without her being able to reach him. He would prefer not to wake up to a wolf gnawing at his arm. It took him a while to fall asleep. The pups, however, had no such trouble. Most of them curled up next to their mother, but the little girl who had first approached Michael chose to sleep beside him. At least one of them fully trusted him. The next morning, he woke up to a pack of wolf puppies climbing and playing all over him. It wasn't a bad way to wake up, but what happened next would take a shocking turn. Michael had to go out to get fish to feed the wolves and firewood every day, and he left his door open for the wolf pups to come and go as they pleased. But he didn't expect them to invite friends over to visit. That seemed to be what happened. One day, as Michael came back, he got a big shock. His yard was filled with a whole pack of wolves. They had come to check up on the she-wolf. This must have been her family that had been searching for the wolf and her cubs, but walking into a pack of wolves in his backyard was not something he was prepared for. It froze Michael in fear for a second. The puppies came running to him, happy as can be to see their friend, but the big wolves all turned and started to growl. They stood with the hair on the backs of their necks raised. It looked like they were ready to attack. Then, suddenly, one of the wolves gave a loud bark. It was the she-wolf that Michael had helped. As soon as she barked, all of the other wolves backed down. They seemed to relax completely. But Michael wasn't planning on hanging around and visiting with a pack of wolves. He got out of there fast, going into the cabin and closing the door. The she-wolf still couldn't stand on her leg yet, and she still had the splint on, so he was glad to see that the wolf and her pups stuck around. After just a few more days, Michael could see that she was feeling better. He didn't know how he was going to remove the splint, but she fixed that by chewing through it herself. She could walk again. In time, she would even be able to run again. In the morning, she barked at the puppies and they all got up and followed her. Michael understood that they were leaving for good. He wondered if he would ever see them again. But he would see them much sooner than expected. He had just sat down to sulk when he noticed movement at his door. The she-wolf let out a sharp bark. She wanted him to follow her. It felt almost unreal, but after everything they had been through, a bond had formed between them. Even though he had no idea where she was leading him, Michael grabbed his rifle and followed. As they walked, the playful wolf pups darted around his legs, completely unaware of the mystery unfolding ahead. They climbed the mountain that was close by. It wasn't long before they reached a flat area, and the rest of the wolf pack suddenly approached them. It freaked Michael out, but they showed no interest in him. They were too busy welcoming the she-wolf and her babies. He moved away quickly, and from a safer distance he just watched. It was incredible to see them interacting in such a beautiful place. It was as if the mama wolf wanted to show Michael that her family was not going to hurt him. It was a peaceful moment. One of the last peaceful moments that he would remember for a very long time. But now that they had reunited with their pack, it was time to leave them for good. He started walking down the mountain, but then turned around. The she-wolf was watching him go. He didn't know why, but he raised his hand to greet her, and she started howling as if to say goodbye. Her puppies came to stand next to her, and when he gave a final glance towards the wolves, they were gone. It was a bittersweet moment. After that, Michael stayed in Alaska for a while, but nothing lived up to the experience that he had with the wolves. Plus, he knew he had to go home. He had been cut off and in a happy bubble, but horror awaited him at home. It was time to face it. He went home, but wasn't there long before he had to join the war and serve. What followed was some of the worst experiences of his life. Fighting in the war was as far from the tranquil beauty of Alaska as one could get. He lost many friends and had to do things that he would try to forget for years, things he never believed he was capable of. It was a living nightmare. Every day it felt like death was at their door, and one day he got much closer than he ever expected. They were ambushed from all sides. Amid the chaos, one thought consumed Michael's mind: how much more humane the wolves had been compared to these ruthless men at war. Then a grenade was hurled toward the group. As the explosion erupted, his vision blurred. The last image that flashed through his mind before everything faded to black was the vast blue sky over Alaska and the haunting cry of a wolf, as if she were calling out to him. Then he didn't know anything else. Michael woke up in the hospital. His body was on fire from the pain, but he was very lucky. Another group of soldiers was close enough to assist them, or they would have all perished in the fight. As it was, he had lost 2 friends and had sustained serious injuries. His leg was hurt, and he was severely concussed. He would not be going back to war, but he wouldn't be going home right away either. First, he would need to get treatment for his leg and get back to health. It took him months, and then he was finally home. But everything felt too closed off. He was longing for something more. The sound of the wolf's howl stayed with him. As soon as he was strong enough, he was off to Alaska. It was a place where he could heal his heart or make a choice about his future. He had to choose if he still wanted one. He rented the same cabin where he had lived before. The first day he went walking, he wasn't sure what he was searching for, but it was like something was drawing him to the area. He went to the spot where he first met the she-wolf. There, he had saved her when she was dying, and with her, he had saved her cubs. Now he was back. What happened next will shock you. He walked up the mountain to the place where he last stood, looking at them and saying goodbye. There, he cried for the first time after all the horror he had seen in the war. He felt like the world was over. He didn't want to live. He sat with a rifle in his hand. Then, suddenly, all the air left his body. A wolf came over the ridge and stood watching him. It was the she-wolf. Just as she did before, she started howling. It looked like she also recognized him. Then, suddenly, 4 younger wolves appeared and stood beside her. The puppies had all grown up. Seeing what Michael had saved brought him a sense of healing, a small remedy for the deep scars left by the war. It gave him a reason to push through the darkness that had consumed him. He had rescued them all, but now, in their own way, they had saved him too. For the rest of his life, he could hold on to that piece of goodness. Whenever the shadows threatened to overwhelm him, he would have the memory of one of the most extraordinary encounters he had ever experienced. Did you enjoy this story? What are your thoughts on Michael's actions? Would you have tried to save the she-wolf and her cubs too? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Sometimes, by saving a life, we end up saving our own. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.